Action! Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Friday Podcast. Again, this is late. This was recorded on a Sunday. I may just have to call it the Weekend Podcast. I don't like that because it sounds weekend. But you know, Friday's a vibe. You know, Friday's about rest at the end of after doing stuff. And I'm doing that right now, so here it is, baby. It's been a trying week, and hard times make strong people. Difficult times make wise souls. So I'm thankful. I'm blessed for every single person in my life, and I would never want to lose anybody in my life. Nobody. Especially, I wouldn't want anybody to harm themselves or try to take, or I love everybody. And yeah, just remember, man, we all gotta love ourselves, and sometimes we need medicine to do that, and that's okay. Because of mental health issue, mental health abuse, I gotta take my medication for anxiety, depression, and whether or not it's the serotonin, it fucking helps. I know people will die on the hill saying that it doesn't help, but do what you think is right, and if it works, do what works. So if the holistic way works, do it. But if it doesn't, go through the other way. There's no shame in doing what you feel like works best for you. I don't talk about it with my friends because they're against antidepressants, but they fucking help. So I have to, fuck it. I love them, and they may hate it, and they don't know the truth, but because I doubt they're gonna watch this, but it's all good. So yeah, man. It's heavy. It's heavy. I want everybody to be mentally happy. Every day is a blessing, and we can go at any minute, and somebody could be taken from us at any minute. So appreciate everybody in your life. Sorry, this one got cereal. Let's get into some random questions, man. Number 556 from the 3,000 random questions. Have you ever needed an eye test? Yes. Man, this shit's hurting my fucking nose. I'm gonna take them off. And I can't see myself, but it's okay. I'm just like a blurry thumb. That's all I see on the screen, amongst other squares and rectangles and circle. So, have you ever needed an eye test? Yes. I was in 4th grade when I finally got prescribed glasses. And when I put them on, my mom took me home. We were driving. I was like, whoa, I could see all the leaves in the tree. And all the trees. That was a defining moment for me. That was like a big moment. Like, if I had a movie of my life, that'd be a huge moment. Like, whoa, I can see. Oh man, I need a pen. Go. Do you carry anything with you for self-defense when you leave your house? Yeah, I usually got a blade on me. You know what I'm saying? I got my guns on me. Not actually guns, but these guns. I got God. I got my Merkaba. I got my angels. I got everything that I've been given. And anything around me, because anything could be a weapon, like the ninjas say. Yo, I wanted to shout out to this company called Super 7 or Super 9. I gotta look at the packaging, but it's a Charlie Brown for Valentine. Like, good grief, it's Valentine's. And he moves. He can move. Wasn't too expensive. It was actually a discount for Valentine's is pretty tiny. I think it's Super 7. Let me look at the packaging. Put the packaging somewhere. I don't know what to do with it. There he goes. So you see it comes in really cool heart shapes, plastic. Yeah, Snoopy up there dressed as Cupid. On the back said Valentine's Day, good grief. Yo, Super 7. Yep. Check them out on Instagram. They got some cool shit. Very dope. What was the question? Yeah, self-defense. Everything can be used in self-defense. If you could read minds, whose would you read first? Oh no. No. I read my own. No, I read Leo the cat's. I'd read a pet's mind. That'd be fun. What weird behavior or habit did you have as a child that you ditched as you got older? Weird behavior you had as a child. So when my shoes would never fit perfectly, right? And I have what I believe is some OCD symptoms, or something. So I have this weird thing where my shoes, when I was younger, my shoes didn't fit right. And I wanted my toes to be right up to the tip. So I would be walking around in school, and then I would go like this. You can't see it, I guess. Let me see. I would pick my foot up and slam it into the ground, and I would like tuck them up, so then there'd be space in the back. You know what I'm saying? So I was really weird about that. I don't do that anymore. I finally recently found out that I actually wear a 9 wide, and that's why my shoes never fit. But I don't know, back then they were just weird because they used to be like long and slender. What do you consider both a blessing and a curse? There's a lot of things depending on how you take it. You know what I'm saying? Depending on how you take it. A gift and a curse. What's a gift and a curse? My rhyming ability, my flow capability, the way I rhyme and riddle, ill like Little Italy. Blessing and a curse. I don't see myself as that attractive, but just a little bit of attractiveness is a blessing and a curse, I think. You can look at anything, any kind of talent you have, right? Like, cause some people like being an artist, but then it's like, well, there's no money. It's very rare to find money in that. It's very hard. If you were entering a baking contest, what recipe would you make? What would I be good at baking? I don't know. I never baked anything. All I ever baked was like cookies that are pre-cut already. I would try some chocolate chip cookies. I'd have to learn though, but I think I'd be able to get good at it. If you were out at dinner with no cash, what would you do or say to get the bill paid? Without cash? I use a card. That's good. That was a trick question, trick answer. What is an enemy to our existence or way of life? Oh, social media. Real shit. Do you think Barbie is a negative role model for young girls? I think it's up to the parents if they allow that to be a role model or not, or if they explain to their kids that it's. I don't know. It's up to the parents. You know, they're the ones purchasing the fucking dolls. If you saw a unicorn in the middle of the woods, what would you do? I don't know if I'd take a picture because nobody would believe it anyway, because the picture could be faked. So I would pray. I would try to talk to it. I wouldn't pray to it. I'd pray to God, like, yo, what's going on, Lord? I try to talk to it, you know, maybe try to write it. I hate that skit, the little scene from Robot Chicken with the kid and the unicorn. I hate that shit. When you have to so I would never do that. When you have to study for a test, what is a proven successful method? Notes, rewriting notes, rereading, making note cards, going over that, testing yourself. What's a common topic at your dinner table? Woke culture, self-entitlement, shit like that, you know what I'm saying? Victimization. Have you ever thought about dating a really good friend? Nah, I don't think so. Not yet. Is change easy for you? Heck no. Definitely not. Definitely not. Change is fucking difficult as fuck. Alright, I'm gonna take a break and be right back, baby. Alright, I got about 9 minutes till the pizza gets here, so let's get into it. Angel number of the week, 767. Sorry, let me adjust this. Well, I think it's blurry, but whatever. It's probably my glasses also. I'm all looking at the background. The background look pretty good, decent. We try to clean up a little bit. The dresser's still a mess. So angel number of the week, 767. From angelnumber.org. This angel number is there to remind you of something important. It is the most, some say, it is the most significant number in numerology because it indicates the dominant influence of your life, your major personality traits, as well as your personal construction. Having an angel number 767 indicates that others will be at the heart of your existence. Not only will you need to be surrounded by caring people, but you will also have a role to play in their regard. Your meditation and position will be useful when there is conflict. Mediation. Your opinions will be of great help, and we will be grateful. You will sometimes have the impression that you are not receiving fair recognition for your involvement, without understanding that it is the consequences of your position that count more than the rewards that you could receive. Thanks to your diplomacy and your art of dialogue, collaborations of all kinds will be encouraged throughout your life. Emotionally speaking, you will need to be with someone strong who you can count on, but also with whom you interact. Professionally speaking, you will be at the top of your efficiency when you are part of a team. Fairness and a sense of justice will always be at the center of the choices you make, as well as your sensitivity to others and their well-being. You will have to be careful and not to forget yourself in a group. For this, you will have to make the constant effort to individualize yourself and assume your own decisions at the risk of displeasing. You will have to learn to say no, even if it will hurt someone close to you. In addition, you will sometimes have to fight against the tendency to passivity due to the fact that you will prefer to let others decide for you. You should also be wary of your feeling of rejection if everything is not working properly in the group to which you belong. You will have to learn to not over-question yourself. It is important to flourish harmoniously when there are many angel numbers 767 to understand the importance of others and the interactions that exist between them and you, without forgetting yourself in the relationships thus formed. As angel number 767, you must be able to develop your personality enough to fully appreciate yourself, but without forgetting the attention to others that characterize you. Secret meaning and symbolism. This time, your approach should be practical, down to earth. Put the emotional reaction out of the way and instead engage in logical and rational decisions. Be pragmatic without getting carried away by emotions. Streamline and simplify. It's a chance to organize in a way that will lead to more choice and more freedom. You must now believe in yourself more than ever. Now, the other day, I saw a weird-looking caterpillar, and I was like, "Yo, I've talked about regular caterpillars, but this one was black, furry, cool-looking, you know." So let's get into it. From Karina'sTarot.com says, in spiritual terms, a hairy caterpillar emphasizes the need to keep your guard up. As you enter a period of transformation, it is important that you create a positive inner world in your mind and don't share your hopes and dreams with other people for the moment. The reason is, if they are not as enthusiastic as you, it may dampen your enthusiasm. You're responsible for your inner world of manifestation. Protect that world while you grow and expand. AwakeningState.com says, some say that the appearance of a hairy caterpillar is a message from a loved one who has passed away. The creature represents your loved one watching over you and sending you a message. This message could be to let you know that they are okay and happy in the afterlife, or to ask you to keep them in your thoughts and prayers. A hairy caterpillar may represent a change that you are soon to experience in your own life. This is a positive sign, as this change will give you more freedom, just as new wings give a caterpillar. I am fascinated by says the writer, fascinated by the hairy caterpillar because it's a creature that teaches us about growth. The little creature starts, that's the pizza. I'll be right back. All right, let me finish this up before I take a break. Sorry. So this little creature starts as a tiny egg, and then over time grows into a large hairy caterpillar. This is gross to talk about with pizza right in front of me. It is amazing to see the transformation that takes place as this little creature goes through stages of growth. You may be going through an experience that feels difficult or challenging, and this is because it's providing you with the growth you need to walk a more empowered path. Powerful. All right, what's the next one? So the other day I had a dream that that my room caught fire, and everybody was okay. It was only my room. I saw where the fire came from. It was an outlet, and I remember in the dream being upset because I was like, oh shit, my phone and my laptop are in there. Upset, but not really upset, but I was like, oh, this sucks. But then I had to come to, in the dream, I remember coming to peace in the fact that these things are replaceable. And human lives aren't, but these things are replaceable. So I wasn't upset anymore. And then I went to the room, and my room, this room, and I saw that the laptop and the phone were fine. So that was my dream, and I wanted to look it up what that could mean. That rhymes. So, dreams.co.uk says the most common meaning behind dreaming of fire is feeling overwhelmed or angry. On the other hand, its positive connotations include transformation, passion, and rebirth. Shuteye.ai says fire dreams can often be a good thing. Fire may mean strong feelings, passion, or love. Fire can also be a symbol of cleansing. Like, you know, those forests that are supposed to catch fire. There's certain kind of forests that are supposed to catch fire, and the nutrients in the soil from the ashes, and then they regrow. Not all forests are meant to do that, though, obviously. MindBodyGreen.com says a common meaning behind fire in a dream is anger and rage, but it can also indicate a sense of urgency. TimesNowNews.com says it could mean that you wish to be enlightened. Moreover, enlightened as in maybe like you need to learn, you need to know something. Moreover, fire is also used for purification, as I said earlier, cleansing. Purification is another word for cleansing. DreamDictionary.org says when fire emerges in our dreams, it can either pose warning or reflects the dreamer will undergo some sort of inner transformation in their lives. AlikaForNoret.com says this dream could indicate that your reliance on yourself will help you prepare for the future. Additionally, having this dream can indicate that you've been through an unpleasant experience. Still, the old difficulty in your life is up in flames and should offer you a fresh feeling of identity and self-assurance.
Also from mindbodygreen.com, it says that if your house is on fire in the dream, it typically means that you're on the verge of being completely and utterly burnt out, according to Lowenberg. She sees this dream type more often in women, though it can certainly apply to men too. Stress has built up to the point where the house is on fire, and when you reach that stage of stress, she says you got to do something about it and take as much off your plate as possible. All right, I'm gonna eat a couple slices of pizza. We're gonna get into the movie review, the anxiety news, and the badass woman at her story. Be right back. Yo. Alright, we're back. Sorry about the blurry camera earlier. I guess I touched it at some point when I was adjusting it or something. Turn this down a bit. Not that much. More than a bit. Bits. So, movie review. Man, gotta go back to work tomorrow. It is what it is. Life is good. Be able to live. We have to appreciate it. Because if we didn't have it, or I kind of want to do this other show. I'm going to do this other show that I just watched, and maybe I'll say this one for later. It's a Paul Rudd. He's the main characters. It's called Living with Yourself. And I just watched it. I watched like the first half of the season yesterday and the second half of the season today. 8 episodes total. It's about 8 hours, I guess. And it was fire. It's funny. It's interesting. There's sci-fi. There's comedy. There's love. There's parts where it makes you realize, like, it just puts life in another perspective, right? So imagine. So what happens is, spoiler alert, but he gets I mean, I won't like tell the whole thing, but he goes through this process that supposedly they rejuvenate all your DNA and stuff, and you feel like a brand new person and fresh, and you have all the memories. Well, the reason I say that, because what really is, they clone you, and they kill the original you, and they bury you, and then the clone you, who has all those memories and stuff, thinks that it's all hunky-dory, and everything's just, and you're rejuvenated and fresh and energized, and you're not all fucked up and shit. So, but it's like an illegal practice, and something happened, and the gas they used was bad, or not bad enough, I guess, and it didn't kill him. So he woke up in a plastic bag buried in the ground. So he's like trying to get out, or he gets out, and then he finds out. They meet each other, and so there's this clone, and the clone just wants his life, and then he's like, man, like, oh, this clone's better than me because this and that, but now that everything's risked to leave, you might lose everything to another you. It's like, oh, I really did love my life. I really did enjoy my existence and the day-to-day, the mundane bullshit, everything. And part of all that wear and tear is what makes us, right? Because we having memories but not feelings about those memories, is not having lived through those memories, is what made the difference between the new version, the new Paul Rudd, and the old Paul Rudd. His name was Miles in the show. So, eventually the wife finds out. It's very interesting how they go about it, because you just want to keep going, like, because on the first episode, they find out, in the second episode, somebody else, it's just different people keep finding out, like, probably on the third or fourth, the wife finds out, and that's interesting. And then whenever he gets so pissed off, one of them, the real one gets so pissed off because the other one's, like, faking being him, and he's, like, killing it. He's getting promotions and shit, and he shows up and blows up his spot, and then the clone tries to play it off, but that's his brother, his twin brother. So Yeah, but it's pretty interesting. It's pretty dope. It goes into question the logic and the theology and the idea and the what if of cloning oneself and a person who's has memories but hasn't actually done those things. So they don't really get irritated. Everything's new again, which is cool. But if the person that you're in love with, the person you're with, if they're not feeling the same way, then it's like, oh, this is not even you. This is you, but it's not you. It's a different you. So they go through that. You know, he tries to do what he finally wants to do. The other one is like just real clear headed and he's active and he's just like the best version of him. The other one's not necessarily the worst version, but it's just the realest version. But at first, you kind of, it's like, yeah, he's the worst version. They have to live with each other because he, you know. Maybe I will spoil it, but they try to, because it came out like years ago, 2019. It's on Netflix. So then they try to, you know, because the clone gets jealous because the wife obviously doesn't want to be with the clone. She wants to be with the real him. She's like, I don't even know you. I don't want to see you at first. And then, I don't know, something happens where eventually, like, she goes on a date with the new one, but it just isn't the same because it isn't him. Because he's too peppy. He's too happy. It's not him, right? And so then the clone gets desperate and he wants to kill the original. And he starts pretending to be like the other one, like all sad and shit. He's like, yeah, I got this. But then he saw that the real one and her like were really in love. So then he was gonna try to kill himself. The clone was gonna try to kill himself, which is synchronicity to a personal, very close person in my life, you know, situation that they kind of went through recently. And but he couldn't do it, so he tried to get the other guy. He tried to get the OG to do it, but the OG couldn't do it. The OG finally did do it after a long fight, but then he brought him back to life. And then like one of the main stories it's like going on in the background is that she was trying to get pregnant, and he was like took years to get tested, and finally got tested, finally figured out he could have kids. And then at the end, you know, it's weird how it works out. I don't want to spoil it, but it works out. Everything works the fuck out in a weird fucking way. And it's hilarious, it's amazing, it's incredible, it's artistic, it really makes you think. It flows by real quick. 5 stars, definitely. It's really weird how good of an actor Paul Rudd is. To be able to act with himself, because you know that he's not acting with nobody. Or maybe they have somebody there, but in a lot of parts he's just himself. So he played 2 parts in this movie, so that's pretty interesting. It was fucking amazing. Alright, now. Anxiety news, ladies and gentlemen. Let me move this down a bit. 6 subtle ways parents increase their child's anxiety. Now look. This is not an attack on parents. This is just I'm just re-reporting this from some psychotherapist named Mary Jo Rapini on Fox 26 Houston. So I don't know if I disagree or agree with this, right? Obviously, parents can cause anxiety in kids, but there's also ways that the kids can cause their own anxiety. We can cause our own anxiety sometimes, Well, let's just get into it, man. Let's get into it. This was published January 23rd, 2023. Whoa, look at that, 23 at 10:49 a.m. So psychotherapist Mary Jo Rapini says, while no parent purposely tries to instill anxiety in their child, obviously, these 6 subtle actions can increase or create anxiety in your child. More and more emergency room admissions these days are directly correlated to excessive anxiety brought on by stress. When we hear about anxiety, we think of our own or good friends. Rarely do we consider it in the context of our children. They don't know me. After all, children are supposed to spend their youth playing, not worrying about things that happen in their life. What's crazy is we were all kids, and I guess people don't remember that they used to worry about shit. I worried about shit when I was a kid, a lot of shit. March 22, 2022 study published in JAMA Pediatrics reported that even prior to the pandemic, anxiety was becoming more prevalent among children and adolescents. In fact, by 2020, approximately 5 million children experience anxiety. Those numbers continue to rise, and parents are often the last to recognize the symptoms. Kids don't talk about feeling anxious, and parents may brush off complaints about a headache or a stomach ache, or it says tummy ache, but I'm not. I already said that, so fuck it. Or make excuses when their child withdraws from family activities. Parents are busy and sometimes in their hurriedness avoid talking about how a child feels in lieu of getting them to school on time. When children think it's not okay to discuss what they're feeling, they internalize their uncomfortable feelings, leading to sadness and ultimately, possibly, depression. You want to do the best for your child. No parent purposely tries to instill anxiety, but there's either that. Oh, okay, so this big ass intro. So number 1, denying your own anxiety encourages your child to avoid theirs. Even when parents are out of touch with their own anxiety, their child can feel it. Instead of dismissal, when your child complains of a tummy or headache, talk to them about it. Are they feeling worried or upset? Follow this conversation with a self-check. Are you feeling anxious and projecting your anxiety onto your child? If so, explain to your child what worries you and remind them that you are an adult and can take care of yourself. Reassure your child that they did not cause your anxiety. With older children, if your anxiety is related to them, schedule a separate one-on-one talk. Never allow your child to feel responsible for your anxiety. Number 2, avoiding conversations about feelings. Sometimes parents feel pressured by time, worrying that discussions of feelings with their child will turn into a day-long conversation. Perhaps you grew up in a family where feelings were invalidated or respected. Your child needs to hear that what they feel is important and valid. Validating a feeling doesn't mean you give in to your child's wants. Rather, you communicate that they are heard, understood, and you will always act in their best interest. This has nothing to do with them getting their own way. Number 3, hovering over your child or being too cautious. When you ask your child to be careful, watch out, or constantly warning them that they can get hurt, your child becomes anxious and worried about trying new things. You also send the message that they aren't capable, lowering their confidence and filling them with doubt. Your job as a parent is to encourage your child and set safety measures without limiting them from trying new things. Failure, falling, and taking small risks are important components of childhood. Don't let your good intentions to avoid injuries prevent your child from necessary childhood experiences. 4, praising results without mentioning the effort. When parents project their need to win onto their child, the child begins feeling overwhelmed, pressured, and anxious. I lost it. Not everyone can win, and recognizing and validating their child's efforts reduces anxieties. Kids need praise from their parents, but when praise is limited to when their child wins, the child often withdraws and refuses to even try. Look for the effort your child puts into their work. Sportsmanship, integrity, compassion for other players, and dedication to practice are much more important lessons for adulthood than winning. Very true. Number 5, wishy-washy parenting style. Sending your child mixed messages provokes anxiety. You want your children to achieve in academics, but you also want them to enjoy childhood. Prioritize what you say. Help your children find balance. Build a schedule with them that allows ample time for homework, relaxation, and playtime with their friends. Reinforce the schedule so your child doesn't cram all night for a test, worrying that they will fail because they didn't study a little each day. 6, communicating without listening. One of the worst parenting habits involves 20 questions. When parents ask too many questions, children become anxious. For example, asking your child if they are worried about not having friends confirms your child's worst fear and tells them they should worry. A much better approach conversing with your child is to ask one or two leading questions, then listen. As you listen, be curious and ask them to tell you more about how a situation felt. Children want to talk to their parents and they want their parents to listen, validate, and empathize without judgment. If you're a parent, you worry. It's natural and completely normal. Show your children healthy ways to cope with stress and anxiety. Teach them about deep breathing exercises and to visualize joyful times, but above all, listen. When parents listen and reassure their child that they will tackle the worry together, children calm down. There are many things that make children anxious, but not having a supportive parent who cares and takes time to listen should never be one of them. Very interesting, very interesting. I agree with most of that. I don't think I disagree with any of that. The winning one, you know, that's interesting. That's always been debated, right, in recent times. Like, but the effort, if they put in effort, yeah. Like, thank you for trying. You tried, shit. You know. All right. I'm going to take another break, and then we're going to come back, because this holds a stake, and I don't know if I'm probably not going to read the whole thing, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, when I was going through it, this is minimized. I've deleted like 6 or 7 pages, and I was like, this is the shit that was interesting to me, but as I go through it, I'll get the vibe and see what's interesting to y'all. So we'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Welcome. Pardon me. I may have to rename this segment for the algorithm instead of calling it Badass Women of History, but I love saying that. Badass Women of History. I might have to say awesome women. No, I gotta say it. I gotta fucking say it. Badass Women of History. All right. Gertrude Margaret Lothian Bell. Born July 14th, 1868, passed July 12th, 2 days before her birthday, in 1926. She was an English writer, traveler, political officer, administrator, and archaeologist. She spent much of her life exploring and mapping the Middle East and became highly influential to British imperial policymaking as an Arabist due to her knowledge and contacts built up through extensive travels. During her lifetime, she was highly esteemed and trusted by British officials such as High Commissioner for Mesopotamia, Percy Cox, giving her great influence. Excuse me. She participated in both the 1919 Paris Peace Conference, briefly, and the 1921 Cairo Conference, which helped decide the territorial boundaries and governments of the post-war Middle East as part of the partition of the Ottoman Empire. Whoa, that they kind of went through that in Miss Marvel. That's how I learned about the partition. Bell believed that the momentum of Arab nationalism was unstoppable, and that the British government should ally with nationalists rather than stand against them. Along with T.E. Lawrence, she advocated for independent Arab states in the Middle East following the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, and supported the installation of Hashemite monarchies in what is today Jordan and Iraq. I don't know if she's right or wrong, but she was a badass because of how influential she was, the power she had, her interests. Bell was raised in a privileged environment that allowed her an education at Oxford University, to travel the world, and to make the acquaintance of people who would become influential policymakers later. In her travels, she became an excellent mountain climber and horseback rider. She expressed great affection for the Middle East, visiting Kahar, Iran, Syria, Palestine, Mesopotamia, Asia Minor, and Arabia. She participated in archaeological digs during a time period of great ferment and new discoveries, and personally funded a dig at Ben Berkelis in Asia Minor. She traveled through the Hale region in the northern part of the Arabian Peninsula during an extensive trip in 1913 and 1914, and was one of the very few Westerners to have seen the area at the time. Most men didn't even see that from over here. The outbreak of World War One in August of 1914 and the Ottoman Empire's entry into the war a few months later on the side of Germany upended the status quo in the Middle East. She briefly joined the Arab Bureau in Cairo, where she worked with T.E. Lawrence. At the request of family friend Lord Hardinge, Viceroy of India, she joined the British administration in Ottoman Mesopotamia in 1917, where she served as a political officer and the Oriental, is what they called it back then, and as the Oriental Secretary to 3 High Commissioners. Because it's the Orient, that's what they call the area. The only woman in such high rank, I'm not defending, I'm gonna keep going. The only woman in such high ranking civil roles in the British Empire. Bell also supported the cause of the largely urban Sunni population in their attempts to modernize Iraq. She spent much of the rest of her life in Baghdad and was a key player in the nation building of what would eventually become the Kingdom of Iraq. She met and befriended a large number of Iraqis in both the city and the countryside and was a confidant and ally of Iraq's new king, Faisal. Toward the end of her life, she was sidelined from Iraqi politics. Perhaps seeing that she still needed something to occupy her, Faisal appointed her the honorary director of antiquities of Iraq, where she returned to her original love of archaeology. In that role, she helped modernize procedures and catalog findings, all of which helped prevent unauthorized looting of artifacts. She supported education for Iraqi women, served as the president of the Baghdad Library, the future Iraq National Library, and founded the Iraq Museum as a place to display the country's archaeological treasures. She died in 1926 of an overdose of sleeping pills in what was possibly a suicide, although she was in ill health regardless. So some say it could have been an accident. Bell wrote extensively. She translated them. That's so sad. Bell wrote extensively. She translated a book of Persian poetry, published multiple books describing her travels, adventures, and excavations. See, that just shows anybody can feel like that. You can accomplish so much for so little. And we all feel the same sometimes. The goal is to get through that because she still could have did more. She never got to have a family or get married or have kids, but she could have if she wouldn't have. That might have been the best part of her life. All this would have been for naught. Let's see. She wrote it. Okay, so published. She wrote extensively. She translated a book of Persian poetry, published multiple books describing her travels, adventures, and excavations, and sent a steady stream of letters back to England during World War I that influenced government thinking in an era where few English people were familiar with the contemporary Middle East. So, her early life. Gertrude Bell was born, as we said earlier, July 14th, 1868, in Washington New Hall, now known as Dame Margaret Hall, in Washington County, Durham, England. Her family was wealthy, which enabled both her higher education and her travels. Her grandfather was the Iron Master Sir Isaac Lothian Bell, an industrialist and a Liberal member of Parliament between 1875 and 1880. Mary Nae Shield Bell, the daughter of John Shield of Newcastle on Tyne, and Gertrude's mother, died in 1871 while giving birth to a son, Maurice Bell, later the 3rd Baronet. Gertrude Bell was just 3 at the time, and the death led to a lifelong close relationship with her father, Sir Hugh Bell, 2nd Baronet, a progressive capitalist and mill owner who made sure his workers were well paid. Throughout her life, Gertrude consulted on matters great and small with her father, her personal role model. In particular, Hugh shared his knowledge of government and access to highly placed officials with Gertrude. When Gertrude was 7 years old, her father remarried, providing her a stepmother, Florence Bell, née Olive. I don't know what that means because it's in parentheses. And eventually, 3 half-siblings. Florence Bell was a playwright. So her stepmom was a playwright and author of children's stories. What a score. of a stepmom. As well as, no, I'm just kidding. As the well, I mean, true. Unfortunately, she had to have a stepmom, but, you know, dang. I don't know if the son survived. As well as the author of a study of Bell factory workers. She instilled concepts of duty and decorum in Gertrude. She also recognized her intelligence and contributed to her intellectual development by ensuring that she received an excellent schooling. Florence Bell's activities with the wives of Bolk, Vaughan ironworkers in Easton near Middlesbrough may have helped influence her stepdaughter's later promotion of education for Iraqi women. Some biographies suggest the loss of her mother Mary caused underlying childhood trauma revealed through periods of depression and risky behavior. While this loss surely marked her, Gertrude and Florence had a positive and lifelong relationship. From 1883, see, no matter how good or badass her stepmom was, it could never replace her real mom, or that part of you. That part of her was always empty from that point. From 1883 to 1886, Gertrude Bell attended Queen's College in London, a prestigious school for girls. At the age of 17, she then studied at Lady Margaret Hall, Oxford University. History was one of the few subjects women were allowed to study due to many restrictions imposed on them at the time. She specialized in modern history, and she was the first woman to graduate in modern history at Oxford with the first-class honors degree, a feat she achieved in only 2 years. 11 people graduated that year. 9 were recorded because they were men, and the other 2 were Bell and Alice Greenwood. However, the 2 women were not awarded academic degrees. It was not until 1920 that Oxford treated women equally with men in this respect. Personal life. Bell never married or had children. After graduating from Oxford, she spent 2.5 years from 1890 to 1892 attending the London social rounds of balls and banquets where eligible young men and women paired off but failed to find a match. After arriving in Persia in 1892, she courted Henry Cadogan, a mid-ranking British diplomat in Tehran, but was refused permission to marry him after her father discovered that Cadogan was deeply in debt and not her social equal. Cadogan died in 1893. Whoa. Bell received the news via telegram. She befriended British colonial administrator Sir Frank Swettenham on a visit to Singapore with her brother Hugo in 1903 and maintained a correspondence with him until 1909. She had a brief but passionate affair with Swettenham following his retirement to England in 1904. She had an unconsummated affair with Major Charles Doughty Wiley, a married man with whom she exchanged love. This is not really our business, but it's kind of juicy. With whom she exchanged love letters from 1913 to 1915. Doughty Wiley died in April 1915 during the Gallipoli campaign, a loss which devastated Bell. So every dude that she liked kept dying. Travels and writings. Bell's uncle, Sir Frank Lascelles, was a British minister similar to ambassador at Tehran, Persia. Bell traveled to Persia to visit him, arriving in May of 1892. She stayed for around 6 months and loved the experience. She called Persia paradise in a letter home. She described her experiences in her book, Persian Pictures, which was published in 1894. She spent much of the next decade traveling around the world, mountaineering in Switzerland, and developing a passion for archaeology and languages. She became fluent in Arabic, Persian, the Farsi version, French, German, Italian, and Turkish. In 1897, she published a well-regarded translation from Persian into English of the poems of the Divan of Hafez. Her work was a well-regarded translation. Her work was later praised by Edward Denison Ross, E. Granville Brown, and others. She also practiced horse riding from a young age, a skill that would aid her in her travels. In 1899, Bell again went to the Middle East. She visited Palestine and Syria that year, and in 1900, on a trip from Jerusalem to Damascus, she became acquainted with the Druze living in Jabal al-Druze. Between 1899 and 1904, she climbed a number of mountains, including the La Meiji and the Mont Blanc, and recorded 10 new paths or first ascents in the Bernese Alps in Switzerland. One alpine peak in the Bernese Oberlin, the 2,000, let me say it in feet because this is America. 18,635 feet or 2,632 meters. Gertrude Spitz was named after her after she and her guides, Ulrich and Heinrich Führer, oh, that's a weird name, first traversed it in 1901. However, she failed in an attempt of it was in that area during that time before Nazis existed. However, she failed in an attempt of, maybe, I don't know. I think so, yeah, because this is World War One. This is before even World War One. She failed an attempt of the Finsteraarhorn in August 1902 when inclement weather, including snow, hail, lightning, forced her to spend 48 hours on the rope with her guides clinging to the rock face in terrifying conditions that nearly cost her her life. She did some further climbing in the Rocky Mountains during a trip to North America in 1903, but eased up on her mountaineering in her later years. Smart. 1905, she returned to Greater Syria. She met Mark Sykes, then a British traveler. The two quarreled and shared a mutual dislike of each other that would last until 1912 when they made up. She concluded her trip visiting archaeological sites in Asia Minor and visiting Constantinople. She published her observations of the Middle East in the 1907 book Syria, the Desert and the Sown. In it, she vividly described, photographed, and detailed her trip to Greater Syria, including Damascus, Jerusalem, Beirut, Antioch, Alexandria, and the lands of the Druze and the Bedouin. The Desert and the Sown was well received in the Western world. The book received positive reviews and was a success. A notable epithet of Bell's came from her trip to Syria, where one particular compliment from a Bani Sakur tribesman she recorded became part of her later public image. Mashallah, bint Arab. Literally, it meant, as God wills it, a daughter of the Arabs. But she translated it as being called a daughter of the desert. In March 1907, Bell journeyed back to Asia Minor, Anatolia, and began to work with Sir William M. Ramsay, an archaeologist and New Testament scholar. The pair and their staff performed excavations of destroyed buildings and churches that dated from the Byzantine era in Benberkilis, which she funded and planned. The results were chronicled in the book 1001 Churches. In January of 1909, Bell left for Mesopotamia. She visited the Hittite city of Carchemish, photographed the relief carvings in Halmata Cave, mapped and described the ruin of Uqadir, and traveled on to Babylon and Najaf. In Carchemish, she consulted with the two archaeologists, with the two archaeologists on site, T.E. Lawrence and Reginald Campbell Thompson. She struck up a friendship with Lawrence, and the two would trade letters in the following years. Both Bell and Lawrence had attended Oxford and earned a first-class honors in modern history. Both spoke fluent Arabic, and both traveled extensively in the Arabian desert and established ties with the local tribes. So it seems like they could make a great couple. In 1910, Bell visited the Munich exhibition, Masterpieces of Mohammedan Art. In a letter to her stepmom, she recounts how she had the research room to herself and spoke to some Syrians from Damascus who were part of the ethnographic section of the exhibition. She wrote a book on her journey and the archaeological work, Amurath to Amurath, as well as a journal article. In 1913, she completed her last and most arduous Arabian journey, traveling about 1,800 miles from Damascus to the politically volatile Ha'il, back up across the Arabian Peninsula to Baghdad, and from there back to Damascus. She was only the second foreign woman after Lady Anne Blunt to visit Ha'il. Unbeknownst to outsiders, the Rashidi dynasty had been ravished by both war with Ibn Saud's forces and internecine rivalries. The emir and oldest dynasty member was only 16 years old after assassinations and disputes had killed elders of the bloodline. Belle was held prisoner in the city for 11 days before being released. She wrote afterward that in Hayil, murder is like the spilling of milk. At the conclusion of her trip in Baghdad, Belle met the influential Naqib Abd al-Rahman al-Gilani, who would be an important political figure after the end of Ottoman rule. Belle's travels resulted in her being elected a fellow of the Geographical Society. In 1913. She was awarded a medal from them in 1914, then another in 1918. Throughout her travels, Belle established close relations with local inhabitants and tribes across the Middle East. While she could meet with the wives and daughters of local notables without it being a breach of propriety, a possibility denied male travelers, she did not take advantage of this much. She was only mildly curious about the lives of Arab women. Her main focus was on meeting and knowing the influential in Arab society, the male sheikhs and leaders. The British entered World War I, and that's what year was it? So August 1914. So she keeps traveling. In November of 1915, so she volunteered with the Red Cross, serving from November 1914 to November of 1915. She went from France and to London. She was part of the Wounded and Missing Inquiry Department, W and Med, that attempted to coordinate information between the British Army, French hospitals, and warrior families about the status of soldiers and casualties of the war. That's noble. Just that right there, fucking noble. November 1915, she was summoned to Cairo in the British Protectorate of Egypt. She helped out. Her stay in Cairo was short. She was soon sent to British India, arriving in February of 1916, likely at the suggestion of journalist turned diplomat Valentine Chirol. Her task in Delhi was to better coordinate the Arab Bureau with the government of India and mediate their differences. According to Belle, there was no kind of touch between us except rather bad-tempered written telegrams. So both the organizations were skeptical of each other. So that took up a lot of her time. And then there was the Armenian genocide. While she was in the Middle East, Gertrude reported on the Armenian genocide. Contrasting the killings with previous massacres, she wrote that earlier killings were not comparable to the massacres carried out in 1915 and the succeeding wars. Belle also reported that in Damascus, Ottomans sold Armenian women openly in the public market. In an intelligence report, Belle quoted a statement by a Turkish prisoner of war. The battalion left Aleppo on the 3rd of February and reached Ras Al Ain in 12 hours. Some 12,000 Armenians were concentrated under the guardianship of some 100 Kurds. These Kurds were called gendarmes, but in reality mere butchers. Bantams were publicly ordered to take parties of Armenians of both sexes to various destinations, but had secret instructions to destroy the males, children, and old women. One of these gendarmes confessed to killing 100 Armenian men himself. The empty desert cisterns and caves were also filled with corpses. No man can ever think of a woman's body except as a matter of horror instead of attraction after Ras Al Ain. Damn. It's crazy. Creation of Iraq. After British troops took Baghdad on March 11, 1917, Belle was summoned by Cox to the city. She was also given the honor of Commander of the Order of the British Empire. After Cox left Mesopotamia in 1918 for England and then Persia, control fell to Arnold Wilson, the acting British Civil Commissioner in Mesopotamia. Initially, but see, this is when Britain's just hands everywhere. Well, I don't know. I can't really talk shit about because I don't know what's going on during the war or why this is happening, really. They worked for Churchill. That's interesting. She did a lot. She was a mediator. I thought this was cool. Belle did not find working with the new king to be easy. I guess there was a king wherever they wanted, somewhere. I think it was Iraq, but I'm not sure. She wrote in one 1921 letter saying that you may rely upon one thing. I'll never engage in creating kings again. It's too great a strain. Final years. She had recurrent bronchitis attacks brought on by years of heavy cigarette smoking. Her family's fortune began to decline due to a wave of post-World War I coal strikes in Britain that would culminate in the General Strike of 1926 and economic depression in Europe. The Bells began preparation to move out of their expensive mansion at Rounton to reduce costs. She returned to Baghdad and soon developed pleurisy. While she recovered, she heard that her younger half-brother Hugo had died of typhoid. Many of her friends left Iraq in the early 1920s, most notably Percy Cox, who retired in 23. In late 22, she struck up a lasting friendship with Kinahan Cornwallis, a fellow British advisor in Iraq. She signaled an openness to a romantic involvement to the much younger Cornwallis, but was rejected, and their relationship stayed professional friendship. Bell suffered psychologically from 1923 to 1926 and may have been depressed. The new high, of course she was. You travel the world and then still feel alone. Like, she's probably never processed losing her mom. The new High Commissioner of the Mandate installed in 1923, Henry Dawes, kept Bell as his Oriental secretary, but consulted her less frequently than Percy Cox had. She ended up being sidelined, pushed to the side, as they do in these kind of stories. On 12th of July 1926, she was discovered dead of an overdose of allobarbital sleeping pills. It is unknown whether the overdose was intentional or accidental. She asked her maid to wake her in the morning, suggesting an accident, but she also had requested for Cornwallis to look after her new dog in case anything happened to her the previous day, and had recently written a philosophical letter on how her lonely existence cannot extend forever to her mother, suggesting foreknowledge of her death. She was buried at the Anglican cemetery in Baghdad's Bab al-Sharji district the same day. Her funeral was a major event attended by a large crowd. It was said King Faisal watched the procession from his private balcony as they carried her coffin to the cemetery. Back in Great Britain, King George V personally wrote a letter of condolences to her parents, Hugh and Florence. Views and positions. Belle's upper class background and training in history influenced her to have views considered old-fashioned for the time, with seeming pining for an older, nobler, aristocratic age. Her historical training did aid in understanding the Middle East. Many Britons of the area were essentially ignorant and uninterested in the history of the region after the era of early Christianity and the Roman Empire. It did mean that she phrased her appeals toward Arab nationalists in the style of recreating the lost golden age of the early caliphates, rather than using more modernist arguments. She was simultaneously an Iraqi nationalist and a British imperialist. Bell saw no contradiction in this, although fissures between the interest of the Iraqi state and the interest of the British Empire developed almost immediately. From an early age, she was outspoken and independent despite being raised in a differential society. She was willing to verbally contest respected professors and experts during her schooling. This sometimes manifested as arrogance, especially the British people she perceived as non-experts. She was willing to back down when sparring with fellow Arabists. T.E. Lawrence writes of one incident in 1911 where she criticized the methods used at the dig at Carchemish before being reprimanded and convinced otherwise by Lawrence and Thompson. She occasionally had a contrarian bent, seemingly enjoying supporting tough causes. Bella had a rationalist perspective and espoused atheist views. She unsuccessfully attempted to convince her half-brother, Hugo, not to enter the church as a clergyman. Another contrarian position she adopted was taking an anti-suffragist position when momentum was building towards women's suffrage among women of higher education such as herself. She was a founding member of the Women's National Anti-Suffrage League in 1908 and was president of its northern branch. It seems that her stance may have arisen from both her parents being anti-suffragists as well as a belief that women could already be successful under the existing system without the vote. She appears to have softened on this stance later in life after Parliament granted suffrage to women in 1918. Vita Sackville-West wrote that after visiting her in 1925, she had welcomed the move for women's rights and had shifted from the liberal views of her father to consider being a Labour voter. Bell's voluminous letters document her changing and at times contradictory beliefs on the plausibility of an Arab state, the best degree of British involvement, and the challenges involved. T.E. Lawrence once remarked that she changed her direction every time like a weathercock, although in the same statement wrote she was a wonderful person. Let's see. Damn, there's a lot. She was a badass. You know, she was outspoken. She traveled where she shouldn't have traveled. She did what she wanted to do despite many people probably were like, you can't do that. You can't go to the Middle East and interview those people and learn about their history and, oh shit, my fucking glasses. You can't do that shit, they said. Alright, let me try to freestyle before we go. I want to thank y'all for coming once again, ladies and gentlemen. Much love. Man, hey yo, my glasses are stuck, but I don't give a fuck. I'm out of luck. Now it's just skill. I'm so ill. What's the deal? How does it feel when blood spill? I don't know, and I don't wanna. So I just smoke some marijuana and lay back and think about the stars and drop these motherfucking sick bars like they're gold. You might scold, you might think that I'm just too old, but I'm young in my heart, in nature, in spirit. I don't hate you, I hear it. Man, I don't fear it. What it do, what it is, come near it. Yeah, I fucked up, but lucked up, cause now I can buck up. Haters, you gotta suck it up. You can't be me, but you can be you. So keep it true. Even when you're blue, even when you're sad, even when you're mad, it's still better to feel than be gone. This my song, don't get it wrong. I love it all. Yeah.